true horror of the front lines, told by those who survived it. This is Battlefield Stories.
Just after midnight on July 30th, 1945, in the empty blackness of the Philippine Sea, a massive American warship, once one of the most celebrated cruisers in the U.S. Navy, vanished so quickly and so silently that no distress call ever escaped her decks. 900 sailors were thrown into the ocean. For 4 days, no one came looking. By the time rescue arrived, the sea had already taken hundreds, through thirst, exposure, and the single most terrifying shark-feeding event in recorded naval history. But what makes this night even more haunting is what had happened just days earlier, something almost no one on board fully understood. Because before USS Indianapolis disappeared, she delivered one of the most consequential objects in human history, the components of the atomic bomb Little Boy, the weapon that would soon level Hiroshima and accelerate the end of World War II. This is the story of a mission wrapped in secrecy, a catastrophe buried in confusion, and the fight for justice that lasted decades. USS Indianapolis, CA-35, was no ordinary cruiser. Commissioned in 1932, she had served across the Pacific through the darkest years of the war. She carried President Franklin D. Roosevelt on diplomatic voyages. She fought at the Aleutian Islands, supported landings in the Gilberts, Marshalls, and Marianas, and survived a kamikaze strike that ripped through her bow off Okinawa in March 1945. By mid-1945, despite the damage, the ship was repaired and ready. Her crew, most of them young, many still teenagers, were eager to return home once the war ended. Japan was already collapsing. Few sailors believed they had more than a few months left in the Pacific. Then came the orders. On July 15, 1945, Indianapolis arrived at Mar Island Naval Shipyard in California after repairs. The crew expected routine duties. Instead, something unusual happened. 2 heavy crates were loaded aboard, guarded at all times by armed Marine detachment. A third container, lead-lined, roughly the size of a large thermos, was handled even more cautiously. The delivery team had clearance levels far beyond anything seen before on the ship. Captain Charles B. McVeigh III, the ship's commanding officer, was called into a sealed briefing room. When he emerged, he spoke only in clipped orders, refusing to answer officers' questions about the cargo. According to historical records, only a handful of men in the entire Navy knew what was inside. The officers suspected it was important. They did not know it would change the world. On July 16th, the same day the first atomic bomb was tested at the Trinity site in New Mexico, USS Indianapolis sailed under strict radio silence toward the Hawaiian Islands. Her orders? To call it urgent would be an understatement. The cruiser, normally fast, was pushed even harder than usual. She shattered her own speed records, covering over 5,000 kilometers in just 10 days, at times clocking averages above 29 knots, remarkable for a ship of her age and size. Crew members noticed the tension. Officers spoke little on deck. Marines stood guard over the mysterious cargo day and night. And for the first time in months, the ship was alone. No escort, no destroyer screen, no protective net of friendly ships. But sailors accepted what they couldn't explain. Naval crews often carried classified materials, and the Pacific was quieting down. Few imagined what lurked beneath the surface. On July 26th, Indianapolis reached Tinian Island in the Marianas, home of the 509th Composite Group, the elite unit tasked with dropping the world's first atomic bombs. The crates and the lead-lined cylinder were unloaded immediately under a cordon of military police and scientists. Many crewmen recalled hearing officers mutter phrases like "top priority" and "Manhattan District," but the meaning didn't register. Only later would they learn. The crates held the uranium components of Little Boy. The cylinder contained its high explosive initiator. And the ship had just completed the single most secret. Within days, the bomb would be assembled. Its effects would change history. But for the crew of the Indianapolis, the mission was far from over. With the cargo delivered, Indianapolis was given new orders. Sail to Leyte Gulf in the Philippines to join Task Force 95 for training before the planned invasion of Japan. It was supposed to be a routine leg, a quiet transit, a final assignment before the war's end. But beneath the calm surface of the Philippine Sea waited a predator, one that had eluded the U.S. Navy for years. Captain McVeigh requested an escort for the journey, standard procedure for waters still known to contain Japanese submarines. His request was denied. Why? Because American Naval Command believed the area was safe enough. Intel reports suggested no Japanese submarines remained active in that region, and besides, the war was nearly over. So Indonesia's, a massive cruiser with nearly 1,200 men aboard, was ordered to sail alone. Unbeknownst to Captain McVeigh, a critical message containing updated intelligence confirming that Japanese submarine I-58 was operating directly along his route never reached him. It remained stuck in routing, lost in the Navy's communication system. Later investigations would uncover this failure as a key piece of the tragedy. But for now, the captain knew nothing of the threat. On July 29, the mood on board was peaceful. The sea was calm, the weather forgiving. Movies played on deck. Some sailors wrote letters home, others cleaned equipment or chatted quietly under the warm night breeze. They were just days away from reaching Leyte. A few veterans noted that the ship zigzagged irregularly that evening. Zigzagging, changing course periodically, made submarines struggle to achieve firing solutions. Navy guidelines stated that zigzagging should be at the captain's discretion in conditions of low visibility. But on this night, the waters were smooth. Visibility was fair. Captain McVeigh ordered zigzagging to cease shortly after midnight. He would later be court-martialed for this decision. Many miles away, in the stillness of the sea, Commander Mochitsura Hashimoto, captain of the Japanese submarine I-58, spotted an enormous silhouette cutting across the horizon. Through his periscope, he recognized the sleek lines and tall profile. An American heavy cruiser. According to Hashimoto's post-war testimony, he could hardly believe his luck. He had spent months operating with diminishing resources, expecting the war to end at any moment. Now, in front of him was the perfect target. He ordered his crew to prepare their most lethal weapons, Type 95 torpedoes, fast, powerful, and deadly. The submarine closed in. The surface of the sea remained perfectly quiet. No one aboard Indonesia's knew what was coming. When the first torpedo hit the starboard bow, sailors described it as a thunderous, ripping boom, like the entire ship lifted out of the water. The blast tore open fuel tanks and storage areas, igniting instantaneous fire. Moments later, a second torpedo slammed into the ship near midships, close to the powder magazine. It ripped through bulkheads and electrical lines, plunging large sections of the cruiser into darkness. Men were thrown from bunks. The deck tilted sharply. Oil sprayed across compartments. Steam lines burst. Fire control communications died almost instantly. On the bridge, Captain McVeigh demanded damage reports. Almost none came. Within seconds, Indianapolis was mortally wounded. Below, the devastation was unimaginable. Engine rooms flooded instantly. Compartments collapsed inward. Fires blazed through corridors already choked with oil and smoke. Men struggled to climb ladders that were suddenly vertical because of the ship's list. Those trapped below had only minutes. Those above faced a different fate. Captain McVeigh gave the order no captain ever wants to speak. But the loudspeakers were destroyed. The message spread by shouts, whistles, and instinct. Many sailors never heard it. The ship had less than 12 minutes left to go. At approximately 0027, the great cruiser rolled violently to starboard. The bows dipped beneath the waves. Water rushed through shattered seams. Men leapt from the decks into the dark ocean, many coated in thick, burning oil. Then, with a deep metallic groan that survivors would remember for the rest of their lives, Indianapolis slipped beneath the surface. 900 men drifted in the night, clinging to life jackets and rafts. No flares had launched. No radio had been sent. No one knew where they were. The ocean was calm. Too calm.
And the sharks were already circling